do you actually watch it afterwards?
Yes, so helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I do. Yeah.
Cork accent, it gets a bit fast. Okay, so I've just started recording. So again, good morning to everybody. And so my plan today is to run a short class. I mean, if it only lasts a half an hour, then grand. What I want to do is I just want to make sure everybody's up to speed. I've got a few of you on chats afterwards. And so I'm pretty happy I know where they are, but there's a whole sort of a silent majority where I don't know where anybody's at. Okay. And the way I would do this is that I feel for you, because as a student, and my lecturers just slagged me afterwards when I was a postgrad student. As an undergrad, I never asked a single question. For 4 years, I didn't ask a single question. And it is because I was too embarrassed and too shy, and I would never do it. And so I'm trying to force you to do things that I didn't do. So I'm worried about those who are not talking and who are not pinging me afterwards. So what I'm to do is just to make sure everybody is up to where I want you all to be at. And what I'm going to get you to do on this Saturday, I'm going to get you to upload how much of it you've got done. There's no grade going towards it, in the sense that if it's complete and utter rubbish, you see me on Saturday, and doesn't affect your grade whatsoever. It's only at the very, very end. But I just want to be able to say to myself, since there's nobody else in the room, I want to just be able to say to myself, yeah, that people are they're following the steps. All right. So that's really what I planned today, is just to cover any issues that you guys might have up to where we're at. Okay. And also to mention a few things and how I would be cleaning the stuff. So, okay. So if you've gone well past this, you might find this a bit boring. And if so, sorry, I'll give you harder stuff tomorrow if you want. Okay. So what have I done? So if I just actually get started, here on my screen, you should see the 3 notebooks that we've been doing up to now. We have our import notebook, our EDA, and we have our model one. Okay, and the input one, and nothing has changed in that. And say that, and nothing has changed in that at all. And that's just Tracy enough to brave the viruses in the college. So in my import, I've done nothing at all. So I was going to put in some cleaning in here, but so far I haven't put anything there. So this is exactly the same as we had covered yesterday. So last class. So fine in there. EDA. So what have I done in here? All I've done in here. Sorry, I always have my file, mylibrary.py. Notice my file is just called mylibrarysolution.py. It just makes it means that if I download your stuff, or if I download the stuff from my Bitbucket just to see what the blank thing does, it won't overwrite that file, as I did it once or twice. And so what I do is I do an import just to bring it in. So that's the only difference between my code and your code in there. So I've just tweaked that EDA categorical. I just added more stuff to it as time goes on, all right, just to make life easier for me. But anyway, let's go into the EDA. What I talked to you guys about before was my categorical variables, blah, blah, blah. And I started talking to you about encoding the labels. And every time I get a feature I want to keep and I want to look at, I tend to bring in the text for the corresponding labels and encoding them. So I'll come back to this and talk about this in a second. But this box here is a nice to have. I tend to do it because I'm a bit of a goldfish, and it helps me remember. It means I don't have to remember what the corresponding labels are to the corresponding text. But you don't have to do this. It'd be nice to do it, and there might be a few marks going for it. Okay, if you did it, because it gives you better. It means your EDA is clear. But I wouldn't be spending hours because I'm stuck at this and not getting other stuff done. All right, and I'll show you what that does in a second. So I talked a bit about the top one, but I'll come back to that in a second. But that's a nice to have. Okay, remember, what you want to do is you want to do the need to haves first. All right. Okay, going down a bit further, and that's the garbage we had before. So we talked to times admissions. So this is here me viewing my emissions. So I just actually added 1 or 2 more categories here just to illustrate the process and to talk about some issues I've seen. And there's probably loads more issues. So I'm kind of flag them for you and just be mindful. Okay, so what I wanted to have, this is my frequency table. And all I've done is I've actually replaced the values of 1, 3, 2, 4, and 5 by the corresponding name of the actual labels. Okay, and all I do in order to do that, what I did was, as I talked about this before, I came back to the user manual and I just copied out this stuff out. Okay, and that's all I did. Excuse me. And as I copied that out and put it in, because of the way it broke down, I actually just did it this way. I had a string with my labels, which I split, and then I had my corresponding names in a big list there that I did manually. I was doing exactly the same thing for source of admission. So if I go to source of admission down there, and what happened was when I copied all of that, and I put it in here into my cell. And what happened is it came out to be one big string. And what you'll see is for practically all of the other features that you go down, bar the ones with 2 columns like that. If I take the ones with a single column, take the next one, my patient state, copy that. And when I bring that in, I get a big string. And so what I want to do is I want to convert that string into my mapping. And so the way I would do it now is I wouldn't do it like I did up there. What I would do is if I wanted to take that, so I just copy this and do it in a separate cell so you can see it being done. Escape A. So up there. And so what I have is I have a big long string of stuff. Now this is a multi-line string. So in Python, we represent a multi-line string using 3 quotes. So this is me taking 3 quotes, and that represents an entire string now I want to do. And so what I want to do with that string, I get rid of that from there just so it won't screw it up. So if I take that string, what do I want to do with it? I first want to be able to split it. So actually I'll write a function to do this. So I'll pass this into a function called encode labels. So a function called encode labels now that I'm going to define. So I'm going to define a function called code labels and just call it data for lack of anything better to call it. And what's that going to return? Well, at the moment, the very first thing is, I just see it being built up. If I return data split based on the end of line character, then this is what I get. So you can see, look, I'm now getting each corresponding row is what I want. Within each corresponding row, I have 2 things. I have basically the first character, which is my code, and the next is my actual text. So all I just do is go up to that here and basically replace that, return by the following. I do a loop for line, Jesus, forget my typing, in data.split. For line and data.split, for each line I have, I now want to take out of that, okay? For C, comma, label, in, actually, when I just do even this even easier, why not just take actually line, the first guy, out, and the rest is all my corresponding from 1 to the end is my label. So what I'm doing here is I'm building a dictionary. Oh. So I'm doing list completion here. So let's show you. You can see my time RETURN. So if I run that, now what do I get? I get an error because something's wrong here. I get for this in this lines. Where in the hell is line? For line in this, for line in, got my in. So what I've done now here, it's a min error. Oh yeah, one of the things wrong with this, if I look at this, I mean to say to you at the time, if I do, so I'll copy that for a second and I'll just show you. If I do line.split, when I run this, the data, I start off with actually having a blank line at the very start. And finally, let's start again. When I split my rows like that, you see the first line is blank. So I want to get rid of that row. I could get rid of that row by just deleting that space there like that. But I don't want to do that because I find it easier to have all these long line like this. So if I go back to my dictionary that I was building up, all I need to do is I filter here. I filter here and I just filter out, hey, get rid of any lines where the length of the line is less than 1. And now what I've got is, I've still got an error because something's wrong with that. If length of the line, sorry, apologize, bigger than 0. Jesus, that's really bad. Sorry. Okay, so what I've finally got here is I've got a dictionary here of, there's my label, there's my corresponding text, label text, label text, label text, label text, all the way down. All right, and so that's what I want to use. The only thing is, small thing I do, what I tend to do is, if you look down my output down here, I tend to always include the code with the thing. Again, because I just want to make sure I remember it and I don't make a mistake. And also it'll highlight mistakes elsewhere. So I go back up to my code I have up here, and all I do is, instead of actually just taking line by itself, what I do is I first do a strip on it to get rid of spaces before and after it. And what I do is I put a string in here, and the string I put in here, it'll take 2 things. It takes my code, and I take my code, %s and %s. So my string now is going to take 2 things. It's going to take 2 pieces of information. The first piece of information is going to put it on print as is, and the second piece of information is going to leave it as is. So running that, and now this is my corresponding map that I built up. There's my code, and there's my label, which consists of my code followed by my label. All right. So I take that, and the only thing I do is, so that's my little function I use now. And that's basically what I've written down here, except I've written it as a lambda function as opposed to actually as the traditional type function. One other thing then is, so using that, then I can use that for other features now. The only thing I do is I quickly scan through this, and I mean, any labels that are too long, you just shrink them down a bit. And so get rid of that. Transfers from psychiatric, I just go from psychiatric hospitals. There's a mistake here, that should be on the next line, B, and sometimes cutting and pasting from PDFs doesn't work very well. Transfer from one district to unit of a hospital, and so I just get rid of to another district. So that's just an internal transfer for billing purposes. So I'm going to get rid of the from one district unit, transfer within WIT, within hospital. Okay, so they're my labels now that I can use. Okay, and so that's pretty much what I've done down here. And all I do then is, and I save that to my super dictionary called feature labels, so I can use that now going forward. Okay, so if you look at future, if I actually print it out, so okay, so up here is the function I've written with you guys. Down here, in following the best practices of cooking programs, this is what I prepared earlier, and I've just done it exactly the same code here as what I did up there, except down here I just written it as a lambda function. I did it also again down here for patient state, simply because in patient state my codes were 2 characters long, not 1 character long. So after looking at that, you could think a better way of splitting this thing up would not be based on the number of characters, like here it's on the first character, here are the first 2 characters. A better way of splitting this up would be on the first space. Okay, and so you take a line, split it based on the first space, and use that to determine your code and the non-code bit. I didn't, okay, and feel free to do that as an exercise. If I print that features now, what do I get? Well, I'll run it and show you what happens. What do I get now is, for every feature that I've encoded, I get basically a dictionary. So for patient state, I get a dictionary. For social admissions, I get a dictionary, and blah, blah, all the way down. Okay, so there are my various dictionaries that I'm keeping. Okay, and I said, this is just purely nice to have, but it allows me to spot things that I didn't spot earlier. So as I keep going, so that's my nice to have. And how do I use it? All I use is I went back to my library, my function for editing, for EDA of categorical variables, sorry. And what do I do? I just have another parameter that I add on called labels equal to none. And you can see as time goes on, as I'm sort of farting around here with kind of stuff, I add more and more optional parameters to my function. This is something that I really like. And the ability to add extra parameters to a function, and it means then that I can just grow a function, the functionality a function might have, and any current users of that function have, it doesn't affect them whatsoever. On the other hand, imagine back to how you have to do that in Java. You're creating a separate function every time. Because here, it's the one function I can do. And so all I did with that, what does that label thing do? Well, all I do is this. If I call my EDA categorical and I pass in labels for that variable, then what it'll do is it'll use those variables in the charts. Or not in the charts, sorry, in the tables, not in the charts, because they'll take too long. So an example where I use it is down here. So if labels are passed in by default or none, so by default it does the previous work, as in just uses the corresponding stuff. If I pass in my labels, then what happens down here is, if labels are passed in, if it's not none, then when I'm actually doing my value counts, I just apply my labels, I map labels. Otherwise, I don't. So seeing that being used, I go back to my EDA up here and I import my data just to make sure it's clean. So save all that stuff. And down here, there is it being run again. And all I'm doing here is, notice this is the way I printed out that thing just so I can see it. And I'm happy now that that's being built correctly. So from now on, I'm just going to put false. So I don't want to print that thing out anymore because it takes too long. It's not takes too long, just big long load of rubbish. And then I go to my various fields. That's one that you're going to come back to, okay? And I'm not going to. I'll talk to you about what you do for that, but I won't give you the code for how to deal with that, because that's basically how I'm going to separate the 80% from the 100% in terms of the assignment. And so there's my type of admission. So right now, if I don't include the labels, then this is what I get. There's my table there, same data as before, and everything else is what we had before. If I include labels, then what happens is I get the crosstab, the count distribution now has my labels in there. And the same with my crosstabs, okay? So that's all I'm using it for. Now, we're supposed to do something with our EDA, and this is something I haven't talked about. We're supposed to make decisions based on that, all right? So I'll show you how I would make the decision and move that decision from my EDA to my model. Okay, so we looked at that, and hopefully you all have got, hey, that there's clearly a relationship between my feature and my target. There's clear relationship. And this one here looks like fantastic, but the thing is, you have to put that in context. 100% of the people in this group are short term, but if I look across, those guys are well, no, there's no guys. There's only one, and only one patient. So of course that's going to be one of one category. So same sort of thing we always talked about. And yes, you want to look across here and see, do the breakdown in your classes. There's a change, but as you go further and further down to rarer and rarer values of your categorical variable, and this stuff becomes less and less important, and it's more and more dominated by noise. So yeah, that one at the bottom is obviously relevant. So if I look back now, since I've included labels, it makes it easier for me to see what the hell, what am I talking about. And that one at the very, very bottom is invalid. Is classified as invalid. And the system also has a category for 9 for information not available. Well, my view would be, I would take that invalid one, and because they're so rare, I would actually merge it with that class. And also, you need to be mindful of the fact that that this feature, type of admissions, does have missing values. All right, we don't see any missing values here, but it does have missing values. If you want to be sure, go back to your import, and if you go down to your import down here and do df dot what do we call it? Sorry, I forgot. I'm goldfish. Dot is in a sum, and I probably haven't run and because I haven't run all the stuff up to now. But if you run all the stuff up to now, excuse me, you'll find that it does have missing values. So I won't because it takes too long. So I know I'm going to have missing values in there. So I need to clean this up a bit. So what am I doing? Well,
Can
here
you
I'm. Sorry,
can
James.
you just run it in the EDA?
Oh, well,
Should have the same DF.
no, it won't have the same DF. Remember? Good question. That DDF, the DEF in my EDA, because I'm impatient, only uses my sample, my 1/20th of my data set.
Oh yeah.
All right. So the way I would have it is that actually what I'm going to do is I'm going down to here to this, and if I just put a break here, okay, so that means it's going to run this on you. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to. This is the one that. Yeah, I'll just put a break here. So this is the way I gave you all that code, and all I'm going to do here is just escape A. Say done. PORT. Okay, and I'll just run this. Okay, and while I'm waiting for that to run, that'll come up with a message saying it's done. Okay, so, all right, so when that's done, I'll go back and show you into it. So back into my EDA, I know I have missing values in my type of emission. So, and I want to do some cleaning up in it. So this is the code I'll write to do that. Here I'm just writing feature equal to the name of my variable, just so it makes the rest of this code here to be always the same. Okay, and when I do other features. So what do I want to do? The missing values that I don't see here, but I know are there, I'm going to actually let them be also equal to, I'm going to give them equal to code 9. So that's what I've done here. Okay, missing values, I'll give it a code of 9. And any missing value in any rows that have an invalid, I'm going to merge that with code 9 as well. So that's me doing that there. dflog. So that's going to give me a subset of my data set. The rows it picks are all the entries that my feature is equal to that single backslash code. And this is the column it gives me back. So that gives me a slice of my data set. And all I'm doing is I'm storing 9 in there. And notice, and be really careful of this, notice I'm doing everything as strings. So it's not the number 9. It's now, excuse me, it's the 9 in a string. So I put everything in the strings. Okay, I do that. And all I'm doing down here then is I just actually want to print out my feature name and just print out actually what its unique value is to make sure I haven't missed anything. And then all I'm doing is I'm running my categorical thing again, same thing as I had above. But this time, because I just extra parameters I've put in, header equal to false and brief equal to true means header equal to false. I'll just go back to doing that. Header equal to false meant it doesn't output the markdown command. So I only see type of emissions once here. And they're really nice to have. Sorry, did you hear that? You probably didn't hear that.
Yeah.
This thing that just finished. This is just an easy thing to do. I always run this on a data set that takes a long time to run. This just says it in my headphones that it's finished, as opposed to me having to watch. So if I actually go now to type of emissions, you can see I have 7 missing emissions. So I don't have a whole lot of data in missing data values. So I could just dump them, get rid of them, but as I'd be tempted to put them like 9. So there's me now filling them with 9. So what I'm doing here is displaying my categories after I do my merge. And then actually here I'm doing my categorical analysis again, just to look at it, just to make sure I haven't screwed anything up. And I run that now, and you can see what happens is I've now got fewer categories. And I see all I'm opening there is my frequency distribution and a breakdown of my tables of my plot. So that's now my clean version of type of admission I want to use. So how do I use that? Well, I copy the code from there. Once I'm happy with that, I copy the code from there and I go into my model and I go to, so encoding target, we talked about the last day. And I have a new section called cleaning of categorical features, which we mentioned to it. And what I put in here is basically exactly what I copied from there. So in my data set that I'm using from a model, then they're the commands I'm going to use. I'm going to use those exact same commands when I'm looking at my DF graded data set, or when you're looking at it. Okay, so I'm keeping. I want to have in one place all of the cleaning, all of the data manipulation stuff I do. Okay, so that's one feature done, as far as I can see. Okay, and you might say, hey, why didn't I merge? Why didn't I merge my 5 and my 9? Because they're rare. I'm thinking back and forth about this an awful lot, right? And yes, you're supposed to. Again, it comes. I alluded to this maybe last week when I was talking to you about the guy who does the fast AI, who's a practitioner and not a theoretician, and he was talking about the issues of theoreticians are really perturbed about reducing your dimension, but practitioners say, chill it a bit. Yes, the bigger dimension, the worse things are. But what happens is, in practical terms, the data set is not randomly picked points. It has enough structure that it can handle the fact that I had more and more columns. And so, because practical data sets are not randomly generated. So this is the same idea here. Theoretically, you should merge categories that are rare, all right? Because again, to dimensional reduction effectively. And on the other hand, we have lots and lots of data here, loads and loads of data. And the more data I have, the less the need to collapse categories. The other thing is, the categories here are fundamentally different. You basically use your context. Trauma centers, that's gunshots and car accidents and this kind of stuff. You imagine you being in hospital a long, long time, all right? So if I knew somebody came in the trauma center versus not having any information, I don't want to combine them together just because they're rare, because I think they'll be very different. And if you look at the chart, actually, I'm looking at the chart, the rows now, and I can see. I would have thought for the trauma center, they would have been actually. It's going the right way. I thought in a trauma center, I imagine there's going to be fewer and fewer people. There'd be less people. Sorry, less patients coming in short term from a trauma, and you can see that's basically what happens there. So I want to keep those two categories separate, even though they're very rare. So anyway, that's basically. So I wouldn't just merge stuff just because they're all very rare. I keep them there and see what happens. It's the way I would do it. Okay. All right. So that's so now. Sorry. That's a source of admission done. Sorry. I apologize. Type of admission. Source of admission. Same idea. But the reason I wanted to talk to you about these guys is what they do. Source of admission. I copied all the labels and put them in. And if I run this without the labels, so let me go up to source of admission. Start of it. This is source admission here, and if I run it without the labels, this is what I get. All right, and there's a table there, and if I put in the source admissions, notice I have 8 missing values there. If I put in the labels and run it, I get this, and I have my nice labels telling me all my stuff, but there's something gone wrong. I now have 9 missing values. Okay, so again, just to show you that, without the labels, I have 8 missing values, and with the labels added on, I have 9 missing values. So there's 2 possibilities, okay? I either made a mistake in my code, which doesn't happen, or something else has gone wrong. So mistakes are made someplace, and the mistake that was made here, and it took me a while to copy it first when it goes wrong. And what's wrong here is that if you go back and look at your thing, I'm out by 1. Why could I be out by 1? Well, I have a category here, category 3, that has 1. So obviously, I'm not. That's that I mustn't be capturing that thing. And why am I not capturing that thing? Well, if I go to my labels, I see I have 1, 2, 5, 4, 6. I don't even need 3. So I go back to my user manual where I got all of that text, and that's field 12. When is field 12? No, that's not field 12, sorry, that's field 6. I started notice there, I started putting in the label of my fields in there just to save me having to look back and forth, because again, goldfish. Here in figure 6, and what's wrong is in this manual here, there's no label 3. Okay, so be careful. You may be missing labels in your text. I didn't. This is from the first quarter manual, and the manual changes every quarter. But I think this is just a mistake. It's just overlooked. And given the fact how rare that is, I would hazard a guess with only one of them. I'd hazard a guess that an operator just mistyped and put in a 3 instead of put in a 3 instead of a 2 or whatever it should be. So what I do to that is I would go up to my where I create all my features in my labels up here, blah, 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 2, 2, 2, 2, whatever it is. And you could add an extra value in there. 3 if you want, UNKNOWN. All right, so now I've got an extra feature, an extra category labeled in there. Go down to my source admissions and run it now. And I should see, there's my 3 unknown with one of them. Okay, and you could do that, or you could just get rid of the 3 altogether, changing, which is I'm going to do in a second. So I've added it. Now I've got this. I look at my table, and these guys, 3, my 3, which is only 1, so the actual breakdown here is meaningless. My missing values, I have 8 missing values, and my invalid, which is 31 of them. Where's my invalid? There, that guy there. I would combine that with my 9. Again, information not available. And if I look, my invalid, which is that row, sorry, it's a little bit different from the 9, but the numbers are small. So I would treat that, my missing values, and my 3 all together as 1, and just combine them all together. And notice, in my plots, you don't see your missing values. Notice I see it in my distribution, but I don't see it in my plot. You might say, it'd be nice to see it in your plot. Well, what's a lazy ass way of actually seeing it in your plot? A lazy ass way is as follows. I can go up here to the top and just do the following, and do df, my feature, and fill NA, fill missing values, and what I do is I fill it with just NA in. All right, and I do in place equal to true. And the reason why I might do this is that I want to see what is the breakdown of my missing values. Are my missing values very, very different from my category 9 or not? So I run that, and there it is. And now running there, and now I see my missing value in A's. Look, they're now appearing in my plot, and I can see that the breakdown of my NAs is not, especially for long term and medium term. Its breakdown for long term is pretty much the same. There's slightly fewer the short term versus long, in slightly fewer short term patients in the quote versus the NA, but the number is not that big. So that difference I can see visually there. I'd say, feck it, treat them as the same thing. So I want to combine those together. So now combine them together, what am I going to do? The code I'd want to use for doing that. So then get rid of this, sorry, that's rubbish. And that's rubbish. So the code I want to do for that is as follows. I want to replace. I want to fill all my missing values by 9, and my quote and my 3. I also want to replace by 9, and if I have a string in there, so I want to put that in there now as well. So this is a really nice function. It saves you from saying, hey, is feature equal to quote, or is feature equal to 3, or is feature equal to in, then replace it by 9. I can do a whole lot of comparisons in one go. So all I'm doing is, hey, if my feature is in any one of these 3 things, I want to replace it by 9. Running that now, I now get my reduced set of features, and this is the corresponding chart being generated. Okay, at the moment, what's these guys? I haven't looked at 8 versus 9. Yeah, transfer from another health facility. I see no reason. 1 and 2, non-healthcare facility versus clinical referral. They're very similar, but the numbers are big, so any difference would be significant because the numbers. So I think I'd be tempted to leave that as it is. So that's my code now for source admissions. So I copy that, go into my model, and that's my next bit done in here. Paste it in there, get rid of that stuff. And so I can see, and notice on this printout statement I'm doing here, just so you see it, I'm just doing that to make sure I've done everything right, that I've taken my feature and I've actually reduced the number of categories it has to what I want. Okay, so I did that for type of admission. I did it for source of admission. And the next feature I was looking through, I looked at blah, 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 was, get rid of this. Sorry, next feature I looked at then was patient state. There's a lot of features here. If I look to the user manual, there's a lot of features here, spec unit 1 and spec unit 2 and so on and so forth, that I originally thought, hey, that would be really good to use. Okay, again, like the discharge when I looked at the start, and because it says, hey, it says into what unit you currently go into. Now the problem with it is that that information, the ordering, whether it's unit 1, unit 2, and so on, appears to be only decided after the fact because of billing. The way that the Americans do the billing is just absolutely freaking horrific. I thought it was actually the one that was into first in terms of, so strictly speaking, we would not know those variables at all on the first day. It's not the first unit that we're in. It's basically the unit in which most days during the stay occurred. Okay, so we can't use that stuff at all. So we don't know that. So there's loads there we don't know. Grand. And IDs. So then the next one we can have is we do know the patient state. So I look at those and I have there my various states. So I did the same things before. I copied that out. And I did it earlier. So rather than me having to, you see me do it. I did it, go up to the very, very top. I did it earlier up there. Sorry, features, apologize. And sorry, down here, all it is I copy that stuff and I put it in here. And I just realized, oh, my labels are too long, as 2 characters long instead of 1 character long. So I just brought down my functioning code labels down here, and you can see I just tweaked it slightly. So instead of taking the first character, it now takes the first 2 characters. That's all it did all the way along. Okay, so or not, that's the same. That's exactly so. I'm sorry, you can't see that line. So I'll go on to the next line, and the same up there on top. Okay, so it's all I'm doing, generating my dictionary there. Okay, but as I said, a much better way of doing that, thinking about it after I've written that, is basically take my line and split it up in the first space. That would do a much better job than what I'm doing here. Because down here, this character is only a single space, so I have to put an extra space in there. So splitting on the first space would be better. But feel free to do it, and I can talk about it after as you want. Okay, so go down to patient state. What do I want to do here in patient state? If I look at it, so now that I have my labels, I run this, and I see that I've got Texas, all other states and American territories, and these are the states near Texas. I have 11 missing values. I've 6 from a foreign country. and one invalid. Okay. If I look at my sorry, me clicking my fingers to wake my brain. Sorry, if I look at my count plot there, I get basically that it's completely dominated by people from Texas. Of course it is. Now, if I look at my breakdown here, I now need to say, what am I going to do with these guys? And it would seem that my in and my invalid should be merged together, right? And invalid is only one, so in a sense, it's irrelevant. I have 11 missing in, so a little bit more, but small numbers. But let's see what would be the right thing to do with these guys. So I want to actually, before I do anything with my missing value ones, in, it'd be nice to see what is the breakdown of long, medium, and short. I can't see it in my plot because remember, the plot doesn't display missing values. So I do the same thing as I did before. Go up here to this and just do my DF, FEAT or E, my DF feature, and I just do fill in A, and I fill my missing values with a string in. All right, so notice I'm converting everything to strings because life is easier. Okay, in place equal to true, and I'm doing this because of my prejudices, if you want to put it that way. What do I think happens? I would think happens that if I was in America and I had no insurance and I had nothing and I just came across the border, the last thing I do is I give invalid information to the hospital. I'll go in and I just get treated and then I'll worry about ICE afterwards. So I think my missing values, I would guess my missing, and what do I mean for that? What do I mean is it would mean that as soon as I could get up and walk, I'd be getting the fuck out of Dodge. So I would guess my missing values would have the same would have a similar profile, very, very similar to foreign countries, because you want to get out, you have an option. So I'm looking at the plot of that. And this is me including this. So now I've now included my INANs down here. And if you look at my plot, I'm getting exactly what I was predicting. That in my INANs, that as soon as I physically can go, I will go. So you can see I have a huge proportion of short term here. Now, they may be getting out of hospital earlier than they should because they want to get escape or avoid getting captured. And what I imagine the people from foreign countries, the XX ones, are just basically as soon as I'm able to get out, I get out and I go home and get my treatment at home. So you don't have the huge costs that you have. So I would look at that and I'd say the rational thing to do with NAAs is actually to merge them with foreign countries, not actually merging with Texas. So I would look at all those guys, and after all of that, the invalid, the foreign country, the NAN, and the foreign country FC, I'm going to merge together. The rest of these guys, I'm going to slap into the Louisiana, Oklahoma, Arkansas, New Mexico. I'm going to put into ZZ for all other states and American territories, and Texas by itself. Okay, so that's the rationale I'm using. Okay, if you can come up with a different rationale, by all means, just when you're describing, don't spend as long describing as I am. Okay, so that's what I've done down here. So I've taken my feature. Again, I've written it this way so I can just copy the cell and put it into my notebook. So there's my feature. There's me filling my XX and my missing values with XX, because I think the missing values will have the same behavior as the foreign countries, as you saw from the plot above. And then I go through all the other things and I replace them by ZZ. So they're all the ones. Actually, I did invalid to ZZ. So I'll go back up here. I put that guy in with ZZ. I'd be tempted to put it in. So let me go back down here. I'm looking at that and I'm copying that from there. I've actually got it in two places, so that's wrong. That's me cutting and pasting. So I'm going to have there. That's wrong. I obviously cut and paste this and I wasn't paying attention. And into ZZ, which is all other states. What do I want to put in there? I want NM in there. There is NM. I want AR in there. There's AR. And I want OK. There's OK. Then I want LA. There's LA. So they're all the ones I want in ZZ. And the ones I want in XX, which stands for foreign country, is I want to have my invalid. I already have my missing values. And I want to have FC. Okay, so now that I've done that, let's check now, run that and check. And now that claps me down to only 1, 2, 3. Oh, I have NANs as well, so I should get rid of those because I put NAN. Why did this not work? The reason why this did not work is because up here, I replaced NAN by the string NAN. So this code now will work regardless whether I do that or not. So now I've got my 3 different categories for patient state. Texas, anything in America except Texas, and anybody outside it. Okay, and that's my breakdown of my 3 different categories I have. Okay, so that's my patient state done. So I'll copy that, go across to my model, and I paste that in here. Okay, so excuse me. Now there's my and so that's the process I'm going to do, and you just do that all the way through to your various categories. And now in terms of then from then on, so that's enough of the EDA. This is supposed to be only a half an hour class, and I'm sorry it's 12 o'clock already. Jesus, I talk a long time. Sorry, I'll try to. I'm trying to. When I'm trying to stop saying because when I listen back to recordings of me, I find I say that all the time. And the second thing is I'm trying to cut down my ramblings, but that one thing at a time. So let's now look at my model. So I might actually do this tomorrow instead, actually given the time. So what I want to do, so what I'm going to do with class with you guys tomorrow, I'll stop here. What I'm going to do with class you tomorrow is we combine these guys. So we've already got type of admissions, source of admission, and copy that down in here, and so on, all your various features, and patient state, blah, 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 and I get rid of the ones I had earlier. So I bring in all my various categories, and then I can encode, and you can just see the encoding we have, as I say, should work, and you can see it working there for all my various features. And if I look at the columns I have then for type of admission, I have each of my corresponding categories. For my source of admission, I have my corresponding categories. And for my patient status, I have each of my corresponding categories. My corresponding new column is being generated, my binary columns. And you can see the label of them is being done automatically. So I can always figure out what is my breakdown. There's the name of my original feature. And this is now a binary feature that's 1s and 0s for that category. So it's my data being built up. So this code we have here will be used as we build up more and more columns you have up there. All right. What I'm going to do tomorrow, I'll stop here because I'll just do one thing, make sure you're happy with it. Tomorrow what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through the rest of this model bit to the point of where you're building a zip file that you can upload. All right. And I'll compress it down so I make sure it fits within the hour. So by tomorrow, there should be a piece of code you want to run. So if I just go down to the very, very bottom of it here, there's a piece of code you want to be able to run that's like this. And what that will do is that basically will build up the zip file. So this piece of code builds a zip file called myassignment.zip, which you want to upload to Moodle. And the plan is I'm going to get you guys to upload that to Moodle before Saturday. And then I at least have an idea where everybody's at. Okay. And no marks going for it. It's just basically making sure that I don't want to get to week 15, whenever week 15 actually happens. I don't want to get to week 15 and then find that I've lost people back here to start, and we could have recovered it when we had something small to do. Okay, so work through the rest of the EDA. Get your tidying, cleaning code, bring it into your model, and get that all have that all there ready to go. Okay, and tomorrow we'll talk about the model. Okay, sorry, I'll go stuff up that and share, actually, top share. Okay, sorry, close that. You can see me. Can you see me now again? Or can you see the code?
Yeah, I can see the code.
Yeah, Grant.
Yeah, I
So
can see the code. Yeah.
Grant, so are you all happy with what I've done there, or is there anything there I've done that is throwing you off, or what? Or do you, I mean, you can answer questions. You can ask me questions here, or you can ask me as a few of you guys do. You can ask me in Slack or by email. I'm happy to answer any sort of way you want. I just want to make sure that you're all up to speed with the stuff. So, if what I do is I'll stop the recording here, just so if you're happy to, if you prefer not to be recorded asking questions, and then we can answer. You can have a question and answer session for 15 minutes if you want, and then we'll stop normally. Okay, so I'll stop the
That'd be
recording.
great.
Stop recording.